Have you ever thought that wealth could solve all your problems? Many people believe that money is the key to happiness and stability. But life has a way of showing us that things aren't always as simple as they seem. Today, we're diving into a story that illustrates just how true that is. Our tale revolves around a young man named Lucas, who thought that marrying a wealthy, older woman would be his escape from a life of poverty. But as Lucas would soon find out, there was much more at stake than just financial comfort. This is a story of love, sacrifice, moral lessons, and the true value of character. Before we get into the story, I invite you to subscribe to our channel if you enjoy thought-provoking content that stirs the heart and the mind. Also, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a meaningful conversation. Today's story might just inspire you to look at life a little differently. If you feel moved, comment below with the words, "True wealth lies in compassion and integrity." Let's get started. Lucas was a 27-year-old young man living in a small rural town nestled deep within Brazil's vast countryside. Life had never been easy for him. His family struggled to make ends meet, and there were few opportunities for a man of his background. Most young people from the area faced two choices: remain in the town toiling under harsh conditions, or move to a distant city in search of uncertain work. Lucas, however, had grander dreams. He wanted a life of luxury, freedom from the grip of poverty that had bound him for as long as he could remember. Growing up, Lucas had seen how wealth could seemingly transform lives. He would often gaze at the stately homes in the more affluent parts of town, wondering what it would be like to live in such comfort. The idea of marrying into wealth crossed his mind more than once. After all, wouldn't that be the simplest and quickest way to escape his situation? It was a thought that nagged at him, especially as he observed his peers settle into lives that mirrored his parents' lives marked by struggle and sacrifice. The turning point for Lucas came during a conversation with his best friend Marco at the local tavern. Marco, who had known Lucas since childhood, had noticed his growing discontent. As the two sat nursing cheap drinks, Marco posed a question that stirred something deep within Lucas. "Lucas, you seem distracted. What's on your mind? Still dreaming of finding a way out of here?" Marco asked, a touch of sarcasm in his voice, though he genuinely cared for his friend's well-being. "You know, Marco, I've been thinking. There has to be a quicker way to a better life than just working my fingers to the bone. What if I could marry someone who already has everything?" Lucas's voice dropped to a whisper, as though uttering the idea out loud would either make it more real or expose its foolishness. Marco raised an eyebrow, half amused and half concerned. "Marry someone wealthy, you say? And who exactly do you think would be willing to just take you in? You've got a good heart, Lucas, but that's not always enough to get by in a world where money talks." But as it turned out, someone fitting Lucas's idea of a potential escape did exist. The talk of the town was Lady Isabella, a wealthy widow in her late 50s, known for her elegance and refined taste. She had recently moved to a luxurious estate nearby after her husband's passing. The circumstances of her life were a stark contrast to Lucas's. Where he saw hardship, she seemed to glide through life with ease. Rumors spread that she was seeking a young companion, not for love, people whispered, but perhaps for the company and the vibrancy that youth could bring back into her life. It was a tempting thought, one that took hold of Lucas's imagination with a fierce grip. What if this was his way out? He wouldn't need to struggle in the same way his parents did. Marrying Lady Isabella could solve all his problems, or at least that's what he thought. Lucas, emboldened by the idea, decided to take the leap. He spent weeks gathering information about Lady Isabella, learning all he could about her habits, preferences, and even the tragedy she had faced. He knew he couldn't approach her like any other suitor. He would need a compelling reason for her to give him a chance. Thus, he crafted a proposal, one that balanced honesty with a strategic touch of flattery. On the day he decided to approach Lady Isabella, Lucas dressed in his best clothes, which, while modest, were a step up from his usual attire. He rehearsed his lines over and over, but as he reached her estate, the grandeur of the place momentarily shook his confidence. The imposing gates, the manicured gardens, And the sheer size of the mansion, it all underscored just how far removed he was from this world of wealth. As he was led into the sitting room, he saw Lady Isabella for the first time. She was every bit as graceful as he had imagined, her silver hair pulled back elegantly, her expression calm but discerning. She regarded Lucas with a curiosity that suggested she had seen many like him before. Young men seeking fortune in the arms of an older, wealthy woman. "I understand you have something to propose, young man," she said, her tone neither warm nor cold, but measured. Lucas took a deep breath. "Yes, Lady Isabella. I have come to ask for the chance to win your trust and perhaps your affection. I believe I can bring something meaningful to your life, and in turn, I could escape a life of hardship. I am not here to deceive you or hide my intentions. What I seek is a partnership where both parties stand to gain something valuable." Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "A partnership, you say? And what makes you think you are worthy of such a role?" Her question carried the weight of many unspoken trials and tribulations, as though she had faced countless would-be opportunists before him. Lucas, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel, responded, "Because I am willing to work for it. Whatever test you set before me, I will rise to the challenge." For a moment, Lady Isabella seemed to contemplate his words. Then, a subtle smile touched her lips. "Very well, young man. You shall have your chance. But know this, my tests are not just about work or tasks. They are about character and resilience. You will have to prove yourself in ways that go beyond mere effort." Thus began a series of trials that would test not just Lucas's skills or endurance, but the very essence of who he was. In the next chapter, we'll see Lucas face his first trial on Lady Isabella's farm. What he thought would be a simple task quickly becomes a test of not only his physical ability, but also his ingenuity and dedication. Stay tuned to find out if Lucas can rise to the occasion, or if he will falter at the first hurdle. If you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep up with each new chapter as it's released. And don't forget to share your thoughts below. What would you do in Lucas's situation? Comment with the phrase, "True wealth lies in compassion and integrity," and let's continue this journey together. Lucas's encounter with Lady Isabella marked the beginning of a journey that was far more complex than he had anticipated. Her reputation extended beyond mere wealth. She was known for her sharp intellect, discerning eye, and an approach to life shaped by experience and loss. Having inherited a vast fortune after the untimely death of her husband, Lady Isabella was a woman who had seen her share of suitors attempting to charm their way into her good graces. Yet, she remained unyielding, valuing substance over superficiality and authenticity over mere words. As Lucas left her estate that first day, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Lady Isabella's acceptance of his proposal came with a condition. He would need to prove himself worthy of the life he desired. This was not merely a transaction for companionship. It was a trial of character, a test of moral fiber, and an opportunity to demonstrate true value. For her, it was not about having a young man by her side to provide fleeting amusement or attention. It was about finding someone whose principles aligned with her own, someone who could bring a sense of purpose and authenticity to the relationship. Word quickly spread around town about Lucas's bold move, and opinions varied widely. Some praised his audacity, suggesting that this might be his chance to break free from the cycle of poverty that seemed to define his destiny. Others, however, were skeptical, whispering that he was merely trying to take the easy route to success by exploiting Lady Isabella's wealth and loneliness. The rumors reached Marco, who confronted Lucas with a blend of concern and incredulity. "Lucas, are you really going through with this?" Marco asked, his tone a mix of disbelief and genuine worry. "Do you truly believe that winning over Lady Isabella will be as simple as passing a few tests? She's not a woman to be easily fooled or won over by empty promises." Lucas, who had grown used to Marco's cautious approach to life, replied, "I understand your concern, my friend, but this is my chance to prove myself, not just to her, but to the world and to myself. If I can succeed, it will show that I'm capable of achieving something great. that I'm not just some poor boy with no prospects. Marco sighed. Just be careful, Lucas. Wealth and status can change people. You may find that you're not the same person by the end of this. With Marco's words lingering in his mind, Lucas returned to Lady Isabella's estate the following week, prepared for whatever test awaited him. As he approached the grand entrance, he was met by one of the estate's stewards, a man named Bernard, who would oversee the first challenge. Bernard was an imposing figure in his own right, stern and formal, with a keen eye for detail. He informed Lucas that his first task would be to help with the harvest on one of Lady Isabella's remote farms, delivering food to the workers and ensuring the smooth running of daily operations. At first glance, the task seemed straightforward, almost too easy. But as Lucas arrived at the farm, he quickly realized that the job was not just about delivering food. It was about understanding the hardships faced by those who labored there. The fields stretched far and wide, and the workers toiled under the sun's relentless heat, their sweat and exhaustion apparent. The farm's irrigation system, which was essential for sustaining the crops, had malfunctioned recently, and it was up to Lucas to figure out a solution or risk losing a significant portion of the harvest. Lucas observed the workers struggling with makeshift tools, trying to channel water to the fields, but their efforts seemed futile. Approaching the group, he asked one of the workers about the problem, only to receive a curt response. The pipes are broken, and the water pressure is too low. We've been trying to fix it, but there's not much we can do without the proper equipment. It was at this moment that Lucas's instincts took over. Rather than simply accepting the situation, he took it upon himself to find a way to repair the irrigation system. Drawing on what little mechanical knowledge he had, he scavenged the area for materials, using a discarded hose and some old metal parts to create a temporary fix that redirected the water flow. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to restore some functionality to the system and keep the crops alive. When Bernard returned to check on Lucas's progress, he found the young man covered in mud, his clothes soaked from the effort. "You've managed to get the water flowing again," Bernard remarked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Lady Isabella will be pleased to hear of your resourcefulness. But remember, young man, this was only the beginning. She values more than just hard work. She looks for signs of character and empathy in those she tests." Lucas's efforts were indeed reported back to Lady Isabella, who listened intently as Bernard recounted the events. She was pleased with his initiative and practical approach to solving the problem, but she remained cautious. It was not enough to simply work hard. Lucas would need to show that his actions were driven by something deeper than just a desire for wealth. That evening, Lady Isabella invited Lucas to the main house for tea, where she intended to probe his motivations further. As they sat in the elegant drawing room, she asked, "Tell me, Lucas, why did you go to such lengths to fix the irrigation system? Most people in your position would have merely delivered the food as instructed and left the problem for someone else to solve." Lucas hesitated before answering, sensing that his response would carry weight. "I didn't see the point in ignoring a problem when I had the means to address it, even if only temporarily. Those workers depend on the harvest, and the harvest depends on the water. If I had just walked away, it would have been no different than accepting failure before even trying." Lady Isabella's expression remained impassive, but her eyes seemed to soften ever so slightly. "And what would you say is more important, the outcome of your actions or the intentions behind them?" It was a question Lucas had not expected, but it resonated with him. "I believe both matter," he replied carefully. "The outcome shows whether the effort was effective, but the intention behind it speaks to the character of the person who acted. Without good intentions..." Lady Isabella nodded thoughtfully. "You have a point, young man. Remember, though, that in life, we are often judged not just by what we do, but by why we do it. This trial was not merely to see if you could fix a broken system. It was to see if you would step up when faced with a challenge that others might shy away from." With this, Lucas realized that Lady Isabella's tests were more than just trials of labor. They were lessons in understanding the deeper values she held dear. As he prepared for the next challenge, he couldn't help but wonder what other trials lay ahead, and whether he could truly prove himself not just as a suitor, but as a man worthy of the trust and partnership that Lady Isabella sought. In the next chapter, Lucas will face an even more daunting task: collecting debts from the locals, a job that will test not only his persistence, but his sense of fairness and empathy. As he encounters resistance and unexpected challenges, he will need to decide how far he is willing to go to achieve his goals. Will he maintain his integrity, or will the lure of wealth lead him down a darker path? Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch the next chapter. Share your thoughts below. Do you think Lucas is on the right path? Comment with "Character defines true wealth." And let's continue this journey together. The day after proving his initiative at the farm, Lucas was summoned once again to Lady Isabella's estate. The atmosphere felt different this time, as though an unspoken expectation hung in the air. Lady Isabella had clearly taken note of his resourcefulness, but Lucas knew he had only begun to scratch the surface of what would be required to earn her trust. If he was to convince her of his worth, he needed to do more than just perform tasks. He needed to show an understanding of her values and a commitment to something greater than his own ambitions. As he arrived at the estate, Bernard, the steward who had overseen Lucas's previous task, greeted him with a measured nod. "Lady Isabella is waiting for you in the study," he said. His tone carried a hint of approval, as though Lucas had passed some unspoken threshold with his actions on the farm. When Lucas entered the study, he found Lady Isabella seated behind an elegant mahogany desk. She gestured for him to take a seat across from her, a slight but noticeable softness in her gaze. "You showed some promise with your work on the farm," she began. "But there are many forms of service, and not all of them are physical. Today, I have a different kind of challenge for you." Lucas straightened in his chair, bracing himself for what was to come. "I'm ready, Lady Isabella. Whatever the task may be, I will give it my best effort." She gave a faint smile, as though recognizing the eagerness of youth in his voice. "Very well. Then, as you know, I have business dealings throughout this town and beyond. There are certain debts that remain unpaid, and I require your assistance in collecting them. These debts are owed by a variety of individuals, some who are struggling to make ends meet, and others who have the means but choose to delay payment. Your task will not only be to collect these amounts, but to exercise judgment in each situation." This assignment came as a surprise to Lucas. He had expected another physical trial or a test of endurance, but collecting debts involved something different. It required navigating the delicate balance between firmness and compassion. He would have to discern when to push for payment and when to show leniency. It was a task that would not only test his persistence, but also his understanding of human nature. Lady Isabella continued, "There is one debtor in particular who may pose a challenge. Mrs. Helena is a shop owner who has owed me a substantial sum for several months. She is a proud woman, known for her stubbornness and fierce independence. If you can persuade her to settle her debt, it will demonstrate your ability to handle difficult situations. But remember, Lucas, this task is about more than simply collecting money. It is about understanding the circumstances behind each debt and approaching the matter with integrity." Lucas felt the weight of the responsibility settling on his shoulders. He nodded with determination, though uncertainty lingered in his mind. "I understand, Lady Isabella. I will approach each situation with care." As he left the estate, Lucas mentally prepared himself for the encounters ahead. His first stop was a small tailor shop on the edge of town. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Carvalho, had fallen behind on his payments due to a decline in business. When Lucas entered the shop, he noticed the faded curtains and worn-out tools, signs of a once thriving establishment, now struggling to stay afloat. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carvalho," Lucas began, offering a polite greeting. "I'm here on behalf of Lady Isabella regarding the outstanding payment." Mr. Carvalho looked up from his work, his expression a mix of shame and resignation. Yes, I know. I've fallen behind. Business hasn't been what it used to be, and with the bills piling up, well, you understand." Lucas paused, recalling Lady Isabella's words about judgment. He could see the weight of Mr. Carvalho's struggles and the lines etched across the man's face. "How much are you able to pay at the moment?" Lucas asked, softening his tone. The tailor hesitated, then reached into a drawer to retrieve a small pouch. "This is all I can manage right now," he said, handing over a modest amount. It was not the full payment, but Lucas accepted it with a nod. "I'll inform Lady Isabella of your efforts," he said. "And if things improve, perhaps we can revisit the matter." Mr. Carvalho's eyes widened in gratitude. "Thank you, young man. I will do my best." Leaving the tailor's shop, Lucas felt a small sense of satisfaction. Though he knew the real challenge still lay ahead with Mrs. Helena. Her store was located in the center of town, a popular place known for its high-quality fabrics and fine clothing. As Lucas approached, he could see Mrs. Helena tending to her wares with the precision of someone who took great pride in her work. "Good day, Mrs. Helena," Lucas greeted, trying to sound confident. "I'm here on behalf of Lady Isabella to discuss your overdue payment." The shopkeeper barely glanced in his direction. "I'm well aware of what's owed," she replied curtly. "But as you can see, I have a business to run. My cash flow has been tight, and I've had to prioritize other expenses." Lucas took a step closer, maintaining a respectful distance. "I understand, Mrs. Helena, but Lady Isabella values fairness. Surely there is a way we can come to an arrangement that benefits both parties." Mrs. Helena finally looked up, her expression one of skepticism mixed with a hint of amusement. "You're quite the negotiator for someone so young. But tell me, do you really understand what it's like to run a business? To have to choose between paying suppliers, keeping the lights on, and settling debts?" Lucas considered her words carefully. "No, I don't run a business," he admitted. "But I do know what it's like to face difficult choices. I'm not here to judge your situation, Mrs. Helena, only to find a solution. If you can manage even a partial payment, it would demonstrate your commitment to settling this matter." She studied him for a long moment before reaching into the cash register and pulling out a portion of the amount owed. "This is what I can offer for now," she said. "But you can tell Lady Isabella that the rest will have to wait." Lucas accepted the payment, feeling a mix of relief and concern. He had managed to collect part of the debt, but it was clear that Mrs. Helena was not a woman who could be pressured easily. As he left the shop, he couldn't help but wonder if Lady Isabella would view his efforts as sufficient. Later that day, Lucas returned to the estate to report his progress. Lady Isabella listened attentively as he described the encounters, her expression revealing little. When he finished, she spoke. "You showed consideration for Mr. Carvalho's circumstances, and you managed to persuade Mrs. Helena to make a payment despite her reluctance. But remember, Lucas, the purpose of these tasks is not merely to fulfill obligations. It is to reveal the true nature of your character. Your next challenge will test your sense of justice and compassion even further." Lucas felt a knot form in his stomach as Lady Isabella's words sunk in. He had passed the initial tests, but it was clear that the road ahead would only grow more complex. He would need to navigate situations where right and wrong were not always black and white, and where the line between firmness and empathy was often blurred. In the next chapter, Lucas will face a moral dilemma involving a struggling widow named Mrs. Sophia, whose small handicraft business is at risk due to unpaid debts. How will he balance Lady Isabella's expectations with his own sense of compassion? Will he be able to stay true to his values, or will the demands of the task force him to make a difficult choice? Stay tuned to find out. If you're finding the story engaging, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch the next chapter. Share your thoughts in the comments. How would you handle a situation like Lucas's? Comment with, "True character is tested in difficult times." And let's keep this conversation going. As Lucas embarked on the next phase of Lady Isabella's tests, he felt an increasing pressure to navigate each situation carefully. The previous tasks had required him to demonstrate resourcefulness and persistence, but now he was about to confront a challenge that would test the very core of his values. Lady Isabella's words echoed in his mind. The purpose of these tasks is not merely to fulfill obligations, it is to reveal the true nature of your character. It was clear to Lucas that this next task was about more than just collecting debts. It was about confronting a moral choice. His assignment took him to the home of Mrs. Sophia, a widow who lived in a modest cottage on the outskirts of town. Mrs. Sophia was known for her handicrafts, especially the intricate lacework she sold at the local market. Her husband had passed away several years prior, leaving her to manage the small business on her own. Though skilled in her craft, she struggled to make ends meet as her income was barely enough to cover the cost of materials and daily living expenses. When Lucas arrived at Mrs. Sophia's cottage, he was struck by the quaint charm of the place. The front garden was filled with blooming flowers, suggesting a woman who took pride in her home despite her financial struggles. He approached the door and knocked gently, bracing himself for what he anticipated would be a difficult conversation. Moments later, the door creaked open, and Mrs. Sophia appeared, a petite woman with kind eyes and hands that bore the calluses of years of hard work. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Sophia," Lucas greeted her politely. "I'm here on behalf of Lady Isabella to discuss your overdue payments." A shadow seemed to pass over Mrs. Sophia's face, and she sighed softly. "Yes, I've been expecting someone to come," she said, her voice tinged with resignation. "But I'm afraid I don't have the money to pay the full amount right now. Business has been slow, and with the cost of supplies rising, well, I'm doing my best, but it's not enough." Lucas studied the woman standing before him. There was no sign of deceit or avoidance in her demeanor, just a quiet acknowledgement of her situation. As he listened to her words, he felt a growing sense of empathy. He could see that Mrs. Sophia was not someone who shirked her responsibilities. She was simply struggling against forces beyond her control. For a moment, he considered his options. Lady Isabella had instructed him to exercise judgment in collecting debts, but she had also made it clear that the task was about revealing character, not just enforcing rules. Lucas took a deep breath before speaking. "I understand that times are difficult, Mrs. Sophia. Is there any amount you can manage to pay at the moment, even if it's a partial payment?" The widow hesitated, then reached into a small wooden box on the table beside her. She counted out a few coins and handed them to Lucas. "This is all I can offer right now," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I promise I will do my best to pay the rest as soon as I can." Lucas accepted the payment, but as he looked at the coins in his hand, a thought struck him. Collecting this small amount would not significantly reduce her debt, nor would it alleviate her financial difficulties. It seemed almost cruel to take even this modest sum from a woman who was already struggling. He recalled Lady Isabella's words about fairness and character, and he realized that this situation called for more than just a mechanical execution of his duties. It called for compassion. "Mrs. Sophia," he began, "I appreciate your willingness to make a payment, but I can see that this is a difficult time for you. Rather than take this money now, I'd like to offer you an extended period to settle the debt. Perhaps in a few months, when your business has had time to recover, you can revisit the payment." The widow's eyes widened with surprise and relief. You would do that for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what will Lady Isabella say?" Lucas met her gaze with steady resolve. "I will explain the situation to Lady Isabella," he said. "I believe she would prefer an arrangement that allows you to continue your work and support yourself, rather than force you into a position where you can't recover." Mrs. Sophia's expression softened, and a tear glistened in the corner of her eye. "Thank you, young man. You have shown me a kindness that I did not expect. I will remember this." As Lucas left the cottage, he felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond simply completing a task. He had made a decision based on what he believed to be right, even if it went against the strict expectations of his assignment. Yet as he walked back to Lady Isabella's estate, a hint of doubt crept in. What if she viewed his leniency as a failure to fulfill his duties? What if she thought him too weak to handle the tough decisions that came with responsibility? Upon his return, Lucas found Lady Isabella waiting in the drawing room, her gaze fixed on a book she had been reading. She glanced up as he entered, setting the book aside. "You've returned, Lucas. I trust that you were able to carry out the task." He took a deep breath before recounting the events at Mrs. Sophia's cottage. As he described his decision to offer her an extension, he watched for any sign of disapproval in Lady Isabella's expression, but her face remained inscrutable. When he finished, She spoke in a measured tone. You chose to show leniency to a woman who could not pay her debt. Some might say you allowed emotion to interfere with your duty. What do you have to say for yourself? Lucas met her gaze, his voice steady. I believe that duty and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Mrs. Sophia is a hardworking woman who has fallen on hard times through no fault of her own. By allowing her more time, I gave her a chance to recover and eventually repay her debt in full. Had I pressed her to pay now, I might have driven her further into hardship. Lady Isabella regarded him with a thoughtful expression. You speak of compassion and duty as though they can always be balanced. But in reality, Lucas, life often forces us to choose one over the other. You will not always have the luxury of accommodating both. He nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. I understand that, Lady Isabella, but in this instance, I believe that showing compassion would yield a better outcome than enforcing the payment without regard for Mrs. Sophia's circumstances. If that was a mistake, then I accept responsibility for it. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, to Lucas's surprise, a faint smile tugged at the corners of Lady Isabella's lips. You are learning, young man, she said quietly. There are times when the rules must be bent to achieve a just outcome. Your choice showed not weakness, but strength, an ability to see beyond the immediate task to the greater good. Lucas felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had not only avoided Lady Isabella's disapproval, but had also earned a measure of her respect. Yet he sensed that his trials were far from over. There would be other situations where the line between right and wrong would be blurred, where he would be tested not just on his actions, but on the principles that guided them. In the next chapter, Lucas will face a confrontation with a powerful local businessman, Mr. Almeida, who is suspected of betraying Lady Isabella's trust. This challenge will not only test his loyalty, but will also require him to navigate the complex dynamics of power and influence. Will Lucas be able to uncover the truth without compromising his own integrity? Stay tuned to find out. If this story has touched you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest chapters. What would you do if you were in Lucas's shoes? Share your thoughts below, and comment with kindness is never a weakness. To keep the conversation alive, Lucas's journey through Lady Isabella's trials had brought him face to face with complex choices that challenged not just his determination, but his moral compass. His decision to show compassion to Mrs. Sophia had earned him some degree of respect from Lady Isabella, yet it also foreshadowed the increasingly difficult tests that lay ahead. Now he was about to enter a new stage one that involved navigating power, loyalty, and the murky waters of trust. Lady Isabella summoned Lucas to the drawing room early one morning. The air felt heavy, as if brimming with the weight of untold matters. She sat at her usual place by the window, her gaze fixed on the sprawling estate grounds outside. When she finally turned to face Lucas, there was a seriousness in her eyes that suggested this challenge would be unlike any of the others he had encountered. Lucas, she began, her voice carrying a tone of quiet gravity. You have shown some promise in your previous tasks, but now I must ask you to take on a matter of great importance. It involves someone I once trusted, a man named Mr. Almeida. Lucas had heard of Mr. Almeida before. He was a well-known figure in the local business community, respected for his shrewd dealings and influential connections. Yet there were also whispers of his less reputable side, rumors of questionable practices that people only dared to mention in hushed tones. Lucas's curiosity was piqued as he listened to Lady Isabella continue. Mr. Almeida and I had a long-standing business arrangement, she explained. He was tasked with managing some of my investments in the region. However, there have been recent signs that he may not have been entirely forthright in his dealings. I need you to investigate the matter and, if necessary, confront him. This will be a test of your loyalty, but it will also require discernment. You must find out the truth without provoking a conflict that could cause lasting damage. Lucas felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was a test that went beyond mere tasks or moral choices. It was about loyalty to Lady Isabella and the ability to handle delicate matters of trust and power. The stakes were higher, and any misstep could have far-reaching consequences. Not only for him, but also for the reputation and relationships Lady Isabella had cultivated over the years. As Lucas prepared for the task, he sought out information about Mr. Almeida. He spoke to people around town, listening carefully to their accounts of the businessman. Some praised Mr. Almeida's sharp mind and philanthropic gestures, while others suggested that his generosity masked less ethical practices. There were murmurs of deals made behind closed doors, agreements that seemed to benefit him disproportionately. Equipped with this knowledge, Lucas arranged a meeting with Mr. Almeida under the pretense of discussing a potential business opportunity. The meeting took place at a local cafe-neutral ground, where both men could speak freely without attracting undue attention. When Lucas arrived, he found Mr. Almeida already seated at a table in the corner, sipping a cup of coffee. The man was in his late 50s, with a well-groomed appearance and an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Ah, young Lucas," Mr. Almeida greeted him warmly, though his eyes carried a hint of suspicion. "To what do I owe the pleasure of this meeting?" Lucas took a seat opposite the businessman, maintaining a calm composure. "I've heard much about you, Mr. Almeida, and I wanted to discuss a matter that might be of mutual interest. But first, I must be honest, I am here on behalf of Lady Isabella. She has some concerns about the way certain investments have been managed." Mr. Almeida's expression did not change, but there was a slight shift in his posture, a tightening of the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes. "Lady Isabella's concerns, you say? Well, I assure you, young man, that any discrepancies are simply the nature of business. Investments can be unpredictable, and not every venture yields the desired results." Lucas leaned in slightly, keeping his tone measured. "I understand that not every investment is a guaranteed success, but there have been patterns that suggest more than just bad luck. Perhaps you can help me understand the nature of these discrepancies." The businessman's gaze hardened. "What exactly are you implying, Lucas? That I have been dishonest with Lady Isabella? I assure you, my dealings have always been in accordance with our agreements." Lucas felt the tension in the air, knowing that one wrong move could turn the conversation confrontational. "I'm not here to accuse Mr. Almeida," he said calmly, "but Lady Isabella values transparency, and if there is any misunderstanding, now is the time to clarify matters. I am sure she would prefer to resolve this amicably." Mr. Almeida's lips tightened into a thin smile. "Lady Isabella is fortunate to have someone as loyal as you, Lucas. Very well then. There are certain documents that I can provide, which will show that everything has been above board. But understand this, you are playing a dangerous game when you question the integrity of a man with my connections." As Lucas left the meeting, he felt a sense of unease. Mr. Almeida had agreed to provide the documents, but there was something unsettling about the businessman's demeanor. It was as if Mr. Almeida was accustomed to having his actions scrutinized, yet had grown adept at deflecting suspicion. Lucas knew he had to approach the next steps carefully. Over the next few days, Lucas reviewed the documents provided by Mr. Almeida, scrutinizing them for any irregularities. To the untrained eye, the paperwork appeared legitimate, but Lucas noticed subtle inconsistencies, minor discrepancies in reported profits, unexplained fees, and unusually high expenses associated with certain ventures. The evidence was not definitive proof of wrongdoing, but it raised enough doubt to suggest that Mr. Almeida might be hiding something. When he reported his findings to Lady Isabella, she listened intently. "You have done well to identify these inconsistencies," she said, "but this matter is far from resolved. The documents you reviewed are not enough to expose Mr. Almeida if he is indeed guilty. You will need to confront him again, and this time, you must be prepared to act based on your convictions." Lucas understood what she was asking. This time, he would have to push Mr. Almeida harder, to make him reveal the truth, or at the very least, to catch him in a lie. It would be a test not just of his loyalty, but of his ability to handle a confrontation without overstepping the bounds of respect. When Lucas met with Mr. Almeida for the second time, the atmosphere was charged with tension. "I reviewed the documents you provided," Lucas began, "and there are some matters that still require explanation. There are discrepancies that do not align with the initial agreements made with Lady Isabella. I must insist on further clarification." Mr. Almeida's expression hardened into one of cold irritation. "Young man, I have tolerated your questions out of respect for Lady Isabella, but I will not allow you to impugn my reputation based on vague suspicions. If you continue down this path, you may find yourself in over your head." But Lucas remained firm. "This is not about accusations, Mr. Almeida. It is about finding the truth. If there is nothing to hide, then surely you can explain these inconsistencies." The businessman's eyes flashed with anger, but there was also a hint of something else, fear. It was a fleeting look, quickly replaced by his usual mask of composure. "I see you are more determined than I expected," he said in a low voice. "Very well, I will provide additional records. But understand this, Lucas, there are people in this world who do not take kindly to being questioned." Lucas left the meeting with a sense of accomplishment, but also a growing awareness of the dangers that came with challenging a man like Mr. Almeida. As he returned to Lady Isabella, he knew that the tests of loyalty and power were far from over. There were still truths to uncover and risks to face, and he would need to decide how far he was willing to go to protect Lady Isabella's interests and stay true to his own principles. In the next chapter, Lucas will be presented with a final test that will challenge his integrity to its core. Lady Isabella will give him a choice that could potentially ruin Mr. Almeida's reputation completely. Will Lucas sacrifice his own morals to secure victory? Or will he stay true to his values even at the risk of losing everything? The stakes have never been higher. Stay tuned to find out how Lucas navigates this ultimate test. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep up with the unfolding story. What would you do if you had to choose between loyalty and morality? Share your thoughts in the comments and type integrity over everything to join the conversation. With each task, Lucas had been forced to dig deeper into himself to confront the nuances of loyalty, ethics, and power. His experiences with Mrs. Sophia and Mr. Almeida had taught him that life often presented choices where neither path was entirely right or wrong. Now, however, Lady Isabella was about to present him with a decision that would test not only his loyalty, but the very foundation of his character. It was the moment that would determine if he was truly worthy of her trust, or if he was just another opportunist seeking an easy escape from a life of hardship. Lady Isabella summoned Lucas to her private study, an elegant room lined with bookshelves and adorned with mementos from a life of travel and cultural refinement. As he entered, Lucas noticed an envelope on the desk, its presence signaling that something of great significance was about to unfold. Lady Isabella gestured for him to take a seat, her demeanor calm but serious. "You have come a long way, Lucas," she began. "You have shown resourcefulness, compassion, and a willingness to pursue the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. But now I must ask you to make a choice that will determine your future, and indeed, the future of others." She slid the envelope across the desk toward him. "Inside, you will find a contract that, if signed, will expose Mr. Almeida's wrongdoings. The evidence in the document is damning enough to ruin his reputation entirely and perhaps end his career. However, there is a catch. By signing this contract, you would also be participating in an act of betrayal. The contract contains information that was obtained through questionable means, which could call your own integrity into question. You must decide whether exposing Mr. Almeida is worth the moral cost." Lucas felt his pulse quicken as he looked at the envelope. The gravity of Lady Isabella's words weighed heavily on him. This was not just a test of his ability to navigate a difficult situation. It was a test of his values. He could see that Lady Isabella was watching him closely, gauging his reaction. She was not simply offering him a way to win. She was forcing him to confront the true nature of his ambition. "What would you do if you were in my place, Lady Isabella?" Lucas asked, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Is it better to expose the truth at any cost, or to protect one's own honor even if it means allowing a wrongdoing to go unpunished? Lady Isabella's expression remained impassive. "That is a question only you can answer, Lucas. I have lived my life and faced my own tests. This is yours." The path you choose will reveal whether you are truly the man you claim to be, or if you are merely another opportunist who seeks to gain through the downfall of others." Lucas hesitated, then reached for the envelope. As he opened it and read the contract, he could see the extent of the allegations against Mr. Almeida. The details painted a picture of a man who had used his position for personal gain, siphoning funds from joint ventures and manipulating investment reports to his advantage. If made public, the information would surely destroy Mr. Almeida's standing in the community. Yet, as Lucas considered the consequences, he felt a growing unease. To sign the contract would be to engage in a form of retaliation that, while justified, might still compromise his own principles. He set the contract down and met Lady Isabella's gaze. "I understand the weight of what's being asked of me," he said slowly. "Exposing Mr. Almeida would certainly serve justice, but the means by which this information was gathered trouble me. If I signed this contract, I would be condoning actions that fall into a moral gray area. And once I start down that path, where does it end? What kind of man would I become?" Lady Isabella listened without interruption, her face revealing nothing. Lucas took a deep breath before continuing. "I won't sign it," he declared. "If Mr. Almeida is to be held accountable, it should be through evidence obtained honestly and not by resorting to questionable tactics. I cannot sacrifice my integrity, even if it means letting him go unpunished for now." For a moment, there was silence. Then, to Lucas's surprise, Lady Isabella smiled a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "You have chosen well, Lucas," she said quietly. "This was the final test, and it was not about loyalty to me, but loyalty to yourself. I needed to know if you would remain true to your principles, even when presented with an easy path to victory." Lucas felt a mixture of relief and pride. He had not known what to expect, but Lady Isabella's approval confirmed that he had made the right decision. "Does this mean I have passed your trials?" he asked, still cautious about her response. Lady Isabella nodded. "You have indeed proven yourself, Lucas. These tests were designed to reveal the depth of your character, not just your abilities or persistence. You see, I have had many young men approach me over the years, thinking they could gain wealth or comfort through a convenient relationship, but few are willing to confront the true cost of their ambition. You, however, have shown that you value integrity over convenience, and that is what makes you worthy not just of my trust, but of anything you set your sights on." Lucas felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond anything he had felt before. This was not merely about earning Lady Isabella's approval or the potential rewards that might follow. It was about proving to himself that he was capable of making the right choices, even when they were difficult. Lady Isabella rose from her chair and extended her hand to him. "Lucas, you have earned a place not just as a trusted companion, but as a partner in my endeavors. There are many opportunities ahead, and I believe you will rise to meet them with the same strength and integrity you have shown throughout these trials." As Lucas shook her hand, he realized that his journey had only just begun. The tests may have come to an end, but the true work lay ahead, building a life founded on the values he had come to embrace. He knew there would be challenges, moments where the line between right and wrong would blur, but he also knew that the lessons he had learned would guide him in those times. In the next chapter, we'll see how Lucas and Lady Isabella navigate their newfound partnership. The road ahead will present new opportunities and fresh challenges that will continue to test Lucas's growth. How will he apply the lessons he has learned in the real world, where the stakes are even higher? Stay tuned to find out. If you've been moved by Lucas's journey, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to catch the next chapter. What would you have done in Lucas's place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And type, "The true test of character is in the choices we make," to keep the conversation alive. Lucas had come a long way since first setting foot on Lady Isabella's estate. Drawn by the allure of wealth and a life of comfort, he had faced challenges that tested his endurance, compassion, loyalty, and morality. Each trial had peeled back another layer of his character, revealing his true self to both Lady Isabella and, perhaps more importantly, to himself. But as the last test had shown, There were still lessons to be learned and secrets to be revealed. Now Lady Isabella was about to disclose the true nature of the trials, and Lucas was about to understand what had really been at stake all along. The morning after Lucas's final decision to uphold his integrity, he was summoned to the estate once more. This time, however, the atmosphere felt different. The gravity that had accompanied their previous meetings seemed to have lifted, replaced by a sense of quiet anticipation. As he entered the study, Lucas found Lady Isabella standing by the window, looking out over the expansive grounds. She turned to face him as he approached, her expression more relaxed than he had seen before. "Lucas," she began, her voice steady but warm, "you have completed all the tasks I set before you. But before we move forward, there is something I must reveal to you, something that will give you a deeper understanding of why I tested you in this manner." Lucas felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What is it, Lady Isabella?" he asked. "Were the tests not simply to see if I was worthy of your trust?" Lady Isabella gestured for him to sit. As Lucas took a seat, she began to explain. "You see, Lucas, the trials were never just about proving your capabilities or loyalty to me. They were about understanding who you truly are, what principles guide you, and how you respond when faced with moral dilemmas. Throughout my life, I have encountered many people who would say the right things or do whatever was necessary to gain my favor. But I have found that very few are driven by a sense of deeper purpose or genuine integrity." She continued, "The people I introduced you to during these tests, Mr. Almeida, Mrs. Sophia, and even Bernard, each played a role in revealing different aspects of your character. Mr. Almeida, for example, is indeed a man with a history of questionable practices, but he is also someone I have known for many years. His actions served as a mirror, reflecting your own choices back at you. He could have easily swayed someone who was willing to compromise their values for personal gain. Yet you stood firm." Lucas listened intently, absorbing the meaning behind her words. "So, you knew that Mr. Almeida's dealings were not entirely ethical?" he asked, seeking clarification. Lady Isabella nodded. "Yes, I was aware. But the point was not to expose him. It was to see how you would respond when faced with a situation that could have tempted you to take the easy way out. And you did not disappoint. You chose to uphold your values, even at the risk of losing what you had sought to achieve. That is a rare quality, one that cannot be faked or feigned." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "As for Mrs. Sophia, her struggles were genuine. Her late husband was a dear friend of mine, and I have supported her in quiet ways over the years. Her task was to help reveal your sense of empathy and compassion. Would you see her as just another debtor, or would you recognize the humanity in her situation? Again, you showed that your actions were guided by more than just a desire to succeed. You showed understanding." Lucas felt a surge of emotions, relief, pride, but also a sense of being humbled. He had entered Lady Isabella's world with the hope of changing his fortunes, but the experiences he had gained were worth more than material wealth. "I understand now," he said softly. "The trials were about showing who I am at my core, not just about completing tasks." Lady Isabella's gaze softened as she regarded him. "Precisely, Lucas. It is easy to perform well when the path is straightforward, but true character is revealed in times of uncertainty. You showed not only strength and resilience, but also a willingness to choose the right path, even when it seemed difficult." She walked over to the desk and retrieved a small leather-bound journal, which she handed to Lucas. "This belonged to my late husband," she said. "He too was a man of principles, one who valued honor over convenience and truth over deceit. In his later years, he kept a journal of his thoughts on life, love, and morality. I want you to have it as a reminder that the path you have chosen is not just a means to an end, but a lifelong journey of growth and self-discovery." Lucas accepted the journal with a sense of reverence. "Thank you, Lady Isabella," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I will cherish this gift and the lessons I have learned here. I know now that there is much more to life than seeking comfort or material success. The true reward lies in living with integrity." Lady Isabella nodded approvingly. "I am pleased that you have come to see this. And as for your future, I would like to offer you a role here at the estate, not as a mere assistant, but as a partner in my affairs. Together, we can continue to uphold the values that you have demonstrated so clearly during these trials." It was an offer that took Lucas by surprise. He had come seeking a simple escape from his old life, but what he had found was an opportunity to build a new one, founded on principles he had come to hold dear. "I would be honored, Lady Isabella," he replied, "to work alongside you, not just for material gain, but to pursue a life of purpose and meaning." As they shook hands, Lucas felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His journey had started with a desire to escape poverty and find an easier life, but it had led him to something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of himself and a commitment to living with integrity. In the epilogue, we'll see how Lucas's new role with Lady Isabella shapes his life going forward. His journey of growth and self-discovery has only just begun, and there will be new challenges that will continue to test his character. How will he handle these responsibilities? And what new opportunities will arise as a result of his choices? Stay tuned to find out. If this story has resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to follow Lucas's journey. What has this story taught you about life and integrity? Share your thoughts below and comment with "The journey is the true reward" to inspire others on their own paths. The trials were over, but for Lucas, the journey was just beginning. His life had changed in ways he could never have predicted when he first set foot on Lady Isabella's estate. He had arrived with the simple goal of escaping poverty, but what he found was a purpose much deeper than wealth, a path toward living a life of integrity, growth, and meaning. Now, with a new role as Lady Isabella's partner, Lucas was ready to embrace the opportunities and challenges that lay ahead. In the weeks following his final test, Lucas settled into his responsibilities at the estate. He was no longer just an assistant completing tasks assigned to him. He was now involved in making decisions, managing projects, and even advising Lady Isabella on matters that went beyond day-to-day operations. His newfound authority came with a level of trust that he had earned through the trials, and it was a trust he did not take lightly. Lucas quickly realized that the skills he had developed during Lady Isabella's tests were more than just lessons. They were tools he could use in his new role. His experience with Mr. Almeida, for example, taught him the importance of looking beneath the surface when evaluating business deals. With this insight, he helped Lady Isabella restructure some of her investments, prioritizing ventures that aligned with their shared values of fairness and sustainability over those that promised the quickest profit. This approach not only improved the reputation of the estate, but also built stronger, more ethical relationships with business partners. His compassionate handling of Mrs. Sophia's debt also came back to reward him in unexpected ways. When word spread about how Lucas had given the struggling widow more time to pay, other members of the community began to view the estate with greater respect. Local business owners who had once been wary of dealing with such a powerful figure as Lady Isabella saw that her new partner was a man who valued people over profits. As a result, they were more willing to engage in partnerships and ventures that benefited both the estate and the town. But success did not come without new challenges. Lucas soon found that managing the estate's affairs required not just moral strength, but also a pragmatic understanding of the complexities of human nature. There were moments when he had to make difficult decisions, where no solution seemed entirely right or fair. These situations tested his ability to apply the principles he had learned in real-life contexts that were often messy and ambiguous. One such challenge arose when a new business opportunity came to the estate's attention. A company proposed to purchase a portion of Lady Isabella's land to develop a resort, which promised to bring significant financial benefits. At first glance, the deal seemed attractive, but upon further investigation, Lucas discovered that the development would displace a small village that had lived on the land for generations. The villagers depended on the land for their livelihoods and cultural heritage, and accepting the deal would mean uprooting them from their homes. Faced with this dilemma, Lucas was torn. The estate stood to gain a substantial profit, which could fund future projects and ensure long-term stability. However, he could not ignore the impact the development would have on the lives of those who would be forced to leave. After careful deliberation, he advised Lady Isabella to reject the deal, opting instead to invest in a community-driven initiative that would benefit both the estate and the local population. When Lady Isabella agreed with Lucas's decision, it reinforced the values they had come to share, values that prioritized ethical choices over mere financial gains. The villagers, grateful for the decision, expressed their support by offering to help maintain the estate's farmlands. The partnership was a reminder that true prosperity extended beyond money and into the realm of community and shared purpose. As the months passed, Lucas also found himself reflecting on his own growth. He had come to understand that integrity was not a destination, but a daily choice, a commitment to do the right thing, even when no one was watching. It was a value that continued to guide him, helping him navigate the challenges of leadership. The journal given to him by Lady Isabella had become a source of wisdom and inspiration, and he would often turn its pages, finding insights that resonated with his own experiences. But the story would not be complete without acknowledging another change in Lucas's life, one that involved the heart. During his time at the estate, he had become close to one of the staff members, a young woman named Clara, who worked as Lady Isabella's personal assistant. Their relationship had grown slowly, beginning with shared conversations in the garden and evolving into a bond built on mutual respect and shared values. Clara, like Lucas, was a person of principle, and her presence in his life brought him a sense of joy and companionship that went beyond mere romance. Clara had witnessed Lucas's growth firsthand, and she admired his journey from an ambitious young man to a principled leader. Their relationship blossomed as they worked together, finding common ground in their aspirations and values. They supported each other in their respective roles, and Lucas found that the love they shared was yet another reward for the path he had chosen. A love that was not built on convenience or circumstance, but on genuine connection and understanding. Lady Isabella, ever perceptive, observed the budding relationship with a knowing smile. She offered her blessings to the young couple, encouraging them to continue their journeys of growth, both individually and together. For Lady Isabella, seeing Lucas find happiness was a confirmation that her tests had not only shaped a trustworthy partner for her affairs, but also a man capable of embracing the fullness of life. As Lucas looked back on the path that had brought him here, he understood that his initial dream of marrying a wealthy, older woman to solve his problems had been a limited vision. He had learned that true wealth was not measured in material terms, but in the strength of one's character, the quality of one's relationships, and the ability to live with purpose and integrity. The trials had not only secured him a position at Lady Isabella's side, but had transformed him into a man who could shape his own destiny. Lucas's journey was far from over. There would be more decisions to make, more challenges to face, and more opportunities to grow. But as he stood on the estate grounds, with Clara by his side and Lady Isabella as his mentor, he felt ready for whatever the future would bring. He was no longer the young man who sought a shortcut to a better life. He was a man who understood the value of the journey itself, a man who had learned that true fulfillment came not from what one could gain, but from how one chose to live. If you've enjoyed following Lucas's journey, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on our future stories. Let us know in the comments below what lessons you took from this tale, and share your own thoughts on the importance of integrity, compassion, and living with purpose. Comment with the phrase, "True fulfillment is found in the journey, not the destination," to inspire others and keep the conversation alive. Thank you for being a part of this story. Stay tuned for more tales that touch the heart and mind.